Hey, this is Russ Rogers. Welcome to the 17 Law Studio. And today we're going to talk about the things that I've learned over the years, not all of them, obviously, but as a parent and I'm dealing with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of couples, what I would never do, or maybe some things I would always do. The things as a parent. Now, keep in mind, I have four children. I have three through college, two in the already grad school, all that stuff with lots of letters by our name. Another one in lots of letters, both of them in the medical field. Have someone in the construction industry, and then one in college. Two boys, two girls. I've seen the from every age. I've dealt with teenagers. I've seen so many families out there. I talked to so many couples. I've counseled with tons of, I coached and helped with a bunch of children. And I can just say there's some things that I see an awful lot of, way too many times. I wish it didn't happen. And so I just want to overall say, here's Grandpa. I'm just want to give you some fatherly advice or some friendly advice today on some things. If you're raising a family, there's some things I would pay close attention to. And before I jump in, I really do need you to follow me here. If you would follow me on every platform that you can, and forward me to anybody you think needs to hear this. And I would love to hear back from you. Put some comments below and just say, hey, Russ, this is terrible advice, or this is great advice, or have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? That would be so good to me. But some of the things that uh, I think about, like people say, uh, how do you get out of debt? I'm so far in debt. Like, how do you deal with debt? Well, how I would deal with it is not to get in debt to begin with. That's what I would suggest. Get on a plan early. I know it sounds like common sense, but my point is this: I've done the stupid thing. I got out of school and thought credit cards were free cash, and I've done all those stupid things. I've been broke before. I understand all that. But I also know that now, having done all the stupid things and a lot of the smart things, I say, you know what? If you would just not go into debt, that's how you deal with debt. Don't have any. That's the best way. So that's one thing I'd like to share with you. Some of the things that we're working for as a family is not worth it. If you got husband and wife both working in good paying jobs, so that you can have the boat, the car, the four wheelers, the fancy this and the fancy that. And it's like, man, you're working all this time, you're spending all this so you can have stuff. And man, I can tell you how many families that would trade their stuff for just, man, let's just have relationships with our children and relationships with our spouse. So there's one thing I would share with you. I see so many couples who working on, or oftentimes it's not both working. It's maybe the husband's whatever has a one or two jobs, and he's working his rear end off to have more stuff. And so you don't ever get to see him, but man, we've got some nice stuff. And it could be he's in a good field that's being very helpful. Maybe he's in a medical field and he's saving lives or something, which is a good thing. But the cost is you don't have a relationship with your wife or your kids. So there's something, balance that out in your world. And if you can't, I know there's some people out there like Dave Ramsey. He'll say if you can't write a check for it, don't buy it. Well, in Dave's world, I agree, and most time, yes. I know sometimes that's not possible. What I suggest going in debt for furniture or a lawnmower or things like that, of course not. But the reality is sometimes you have to have a nice car, right? And you don't have any money for a nice car. Your $500 car, your $1,200 car, whatever, died. You got to get to work. You can't keep your job if you can't get there. You don't have the $12,000 it takes to get a decent car. 5 years ago, a $500 $800 car now is a $2,500 car because of inflation, right? Sometimes you have to do that, but most people don't pay cash for their house. But I'd certainly try to get a low rate and shorten term if you can, pay extra every month as you can. But when you don't have credit card and all these other things to pay, it's a little easier to get your house paid off, easier to get that $12,000 car paid off. But at the end of the day, outside of that, man, you could do without the furniture, do without the thing. Don't finance your vacation. Don't do those things. So if I was gonna the first thing I want to mention is your finances. Get a hold of your finances. I see so many marriages messed up over finances. I see so many families messed up over finances, and it's very seldom an income problem. Although that does happen from time to time, but it's most all the time a spending problem. I do have a friend now that's got an income problem. I get it. Sometimes that happens. Uh, but generally, if you're making pretty good money above average income, there you should be able to live and not go into. I know things happen. I know people get sick. Things happen. I get it. But barring those, uh, debt is not your friend. And I've got people I know who are always going to title loan. They're always doing this. They're always making those decisions. They always want a different car. They always want a different this. They're always willing to finance a cruise in the summertime, things like that. And they're always in financial trouble. And then they're always stressing and always saying how broke they are. And they're always asking people for money because they can't pay their light bill. And it's their fault. Now, there are people who can't pay their light bill, and they just need help in this season in life. I get that, and I'll help those people all day long. So financing. Next thing I would suggest, if you talk to many therapists, they would probably tell you, do not let your children go to somebody's house for sleepovers, unless you know them super well, and you know the kids super well, and you know what they're doing over there, and you know what they're watching over there, and you know what they're eating and drinking over there. I can tell you, most of my stupid decisions growing up as a child, it was probably the parents weren't home. We're just left or whatever. And if your kids are going over to some sleepover, and maybe they're older and you don't call it that, but you know what I mean. Uh, if you don't know what's going on, and you just think you know what's going on, and you're assuming, that's a bad idea. They'll People will tell you it's not hard to figure out that old saying, "Don't take candy from strangers." Well, it really should be, "Don't take candy from friends and relatives." The kids who get into what I know a family where they got the kid was like 15, and where he learned from porn is hanging over to buddy's house, and they all went to church together. Parents had no idea because they were left totally unsupervised. Never crossed their mind. Never asked the kids what's going on. But now they'll come back and tell you, "Oh, we shouldn't have done that." A lot of the abuse and all the crazy stuff that goes on, a lot of times it's in those situations. So if I was going to give you some super advice, and you're like, "Oh, Russ, but that's Uncle Joe, or that's my sister, or that's my whatever," I don't care if it's your mother. If you don't know what's going on over there, if you don't know what's happening over there, you don't know exactly what they're doing, not doing, what they're watching, what they have access to, then they don't need to be over there. I can tell you times where, the 12-year-old, his first drink of alcohol was over at a friend's house. I can tell you somebody, that's where they learned porn. I can tell you that's where they started watching a rated R movie. I can tell you that's where they got abused. I can go on and on and on. That's not uncommon. Chances are, if you're watching this, you're going to go, a lot of you are going to say amen, because that's where it happened to me. So, Kate, that's something I think would uh, help you in a big way. And what's really nice about this is so preventable. Our kids, they've always been asked, "Hey, can they come over?" And they come over, and I say, "No, but they can come over to our house, and then we'll get to know the kids, and maybe I get to know the parents. And if they get a little older, like, 'Oh, mom, oh, dad,' well, I would much rather my kid be mad at me for being a little bit of particular about this than having to take them to therapy, and then when they get married, having all those issues with their spouse over the trauma." It's an easy decision to make when they're to control that atmosphere. Now, can you control everything? No. Are you going to shelter them? Well, I'm going to shelter them from getting abused. Heck yeah. Am I going to let them stub their toe every now and then on certain things? Yeah. They won't listen to me about basketball or baseball or this, that, and the other. Yeah, they'll get on the bench, that sort of thing. Am I going to leave it up for grabs on the, are they going to go watch or see porn or whatever at a neighbor's house or friend's house? No, I'm not going to do that. Um, so that's another place that'll help you. First, the finances. I would say, man, if you could do that. Next one, I would say, hey, let's talk about uh, what your kids. Now here's the next thing, and this is probably gonna be a fairly short video. I just wanted to hit some highlights of some things that I see that people could do this. And here's the next one is parents abdicating their role as parents. And by that I mean they're leaving it up to the school system. They're leaving it up to the Sunday school teacher. Leaving it up to the coach. They're leaving it up to their friend, whatever, to raise their children. Well, no, that's not me because man, spend they spend the night at our house and they do this and I do this for them. I do this for them. I'm being a good parent. But when it comes to all right, what's the top 5 things you want for your children? All right, I want them to be honest. I want them to be loving. I want them to be forgiving. I want them to be whatever. I want them to be a person of character. I want them to be hardworking. I want them to be disciplined and all that. So, when's the last time you sat down and said, all right, number one thing I want out of you is I want you to be a person of integrity. And let me share with you, this is what it looks like. And we're going to read a book on this. This is integrity. And here's some opportunities where people chose not to go the integritous route. And these were the consequences. And then you go into the next one, loving. This is what I call as a parent loving, that you're going to love your brother or sister. You're going to be respectful. You're not going to talk back. And we're going to be giving. And when someone's in need, we're going to help. And just go down. When's the last time you had those intentional, purposeful conversations with your children about the top 4 or 5 things that you want for your children? By the way, I've done videos on this. One is if you say, I just want my child to be happy, I think that's a terrible idea. Because if you even look at the technical aspect of how a teenage brain works, the older you get, you think out of your frontal lobe, right? And I'm not that sharp. I'm giving generalities here, but that's where you can weigh risk and all that. And when you're younger, you're thinking out of a different part of your brain. It was more emotional and all that. So when you, like for your kids, if you ask a 9-year-old, why in the world did you do that? And they go, oh no. Well, they probably don't know. They just did it because that's just what popped in their head, and so they did it. And so now you're asking that person, oh no, that guy or girl, I just want you to be happy. And their bar for happy is that, oh no, just whatever I'm doing. They don't have, I don't care if my kid's happy or not in this sense. If they have high integrity, they're loving, they're giving, they do what they say they're going to do. They're disciplined, they're hardworking, they study, they do what they say they're going to do. They're a man of the word, a woman of the word. They are all those things, and they're good listeners, and I could go on and on. Now, if they're all those things, they're probably going to be happy, right? The odds of that being is probably pretty slim. So I'm more concerned about those things. So the reason I'm bringing this up is, who is teaching your children those things if you're not being very intentional and clear on what those are? And if you're not, well, let me back up. Somebody's teaching them what integrity is. Somebody is teaching them what respect is. Somebody's teaching them what it means to love or to care or discipline, hard work, whatever. Somebody's teaching them. Now, it's either going to be you, and if you're not intentionally doing it, they're going to be looking at your example. All right? Are you cheating on your taxes? If you pay with a $5 bill and they accidentally give you a $20 in exchange, and you go, oh, look at this, I got an extra $15 or $16 or whatever. Okay, now they see where your integrity is. They see that integrity matters unless it matters with money. So you've taught them that. Long as if you cheat on your taxes and don't get caught, well, long as okay, the kids are saying, okay, mental note, it's okay to cheat on taxes as long as you don't get caught. It's okay to disobey the speed limit as long as there's no cops around, or I have Waze on here for cops, or a radar detector, whatever. It's okay to talk to the waiter like a dog. It's okay to be disrespectful if your food's not perfect, but in other instances you're supposed to be respectful. But those are those instances where you don't have to be respectful. And you may be in a family where you teach them it's not that you don't have to be respectful to first responders, like a policeman or somebody like that, that it's okay to talk to them like a dog. So you're teaching them they're by watching, or if they're not around you much because they're going and going and you're working all the time to pay for all your stuff, it could be that they're friends who are being taught by nobody else or by TV or video games, whatever, what all those mean. So they might be learning from them, might be learning from their school teacher. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, their school teacher's a good person. Most of the school teachers I know are really good people. I don't know all the school teachers I've ever met that I necessarily want them to be the bar for integrity and discipline and hard work and. I don't know if I want them for that. I don't know if I know them well enough for that. But if I'm not doing it, then my kids they're going to listen to them. It might be your Sunday school teacher. I I like the Sunday school teachers I've seen over the years. I've met over the years. Some I know better than others. Some I'd probably be okay with teaching them certain things, or youth leaders in our case. And we've been at a place where the youth leader probably we didn't agree, so we didn't go. We said, we're going to skip that youth leader. We're going to go over to this other youth leader, and that worked out well because we were intimately involved and got to know them and realized what was going on. It's like, oh, that doesn't line up with what we want for our children. So there are some things that just to let you know, your children are being taught, and you're either intentionally doing it or you're doing it by example. And and I would encourage you to go back to that. I don't know, list the top 5 things. Say no matter what, my child has to get these things down. Your list may be a little bit different than mine. Do I want them to be happy? Of course, I want them to be happy. Is that the goal? If it is the goal, who determines what is happy? Is it the mind of a 12-year-old that's like, as long as I can go with my friends, eat what I want, go where I want, do anything I want, that's happy? Well, they're not capable of deciding what's happy in that area. But do I want them to have all these other things and be happy? Of course. And as they get older and their brain starts to develop, then their idea of happy is going to be, you know what, I want to have a good relationship with my spouse, a very good relationship with my parents or my children. I want to have the whole bar for happiness changes the older you get. And it's our parents to make sure that the adult version of happy is the goal, not the children's version of happy. There's another thing I would want children to know about, and I'll close with this one. And that has to do with money and the fact that it does not grow on trees. Now, in your world, it may seem like it grows on trees, but the kids need to know. Oh, well, in my high school economics teacher, there was a sign on his desk that said, "There's no such thing as a free lunch." No such thing as a free lunch, and by that he means somebody always pays. So if somebody buys you lunch, well, they pay you. Oh, I got a free lunch today. Well, it was free to you, but somebody paid. Somebody worked and paid, and ultimately it was through the customers of whatever. If, for example, if I go to a business meeting and or a vendor or whatever, and they buy my lunch, it's their customers that ultimately paid and the price of their product and all that. Just like if you decide that, hey, I'm in the back of the grocery store and I've got some eggs, you get up closer to the front and you say, I don't need these eggs so you just put them on the shelf and they ruin right there on the shelf because you put them up by the cereal boxes or whatever, and the eggs go bad, or the cheese or the meat or whatever it is you put up there. So, you say, no big deal. Who pays for that? Somebody pays. It's you, it's gonna you're either gonna have to pay a worker to go put it back over where the eggs were, or if they go bad, then if enough of that happens, that's a cost of doing business, and the business has to make money or it ceases to exist, and that means the prices will go up. If you keep the buggies, those little I don't know what you call them, grocery baskets, buggies, or whatever you call them in your world, if you leave them at the end of the parking lot, somebody's got to pay to have somebody go down there and round it up and find it in the parking lot next door and bring it all the way back. Somebody's got to pay for that. Who pays for that? The customers through their pricing. Somebody always pays. Somebody says, well, I've got my government check. For whatever reason, you get a government check. Who pays for that? Well, we all do. It's all through either taxes or inflation or a little of both. One of the way there's no such thing as anything free. And that's true with not just your finances. That's true with people who go through high school. Let's say they're a great basketball player, and then they go to a D1 school, and then maybe they're a prospect for NBA. They probably work they're probably up at 5 in the morning and they're going till late, and after everybody goes to bed, they're working. I mean, there's a price that they've had to pay to get to where they are. So it's not just money related. There's no free way to get to the NBA, no free way to get to a D1 school. But there's also a cost. You also give up things to get to that level as well. But back to the financial side of it. If your children could understand, like, well, that my parents bought me a new car. Well, dad or mom both worked their butt off. And they went in for 40, 50, 60 hours a week to do all this so you could have a free car. There's no such thing as a free car. So when it comes to money, I would suggest that your children participate in some of the purchases and let them see what a job looks like. Now, they don't have to work outside the house. I know when I was 12, I was riding my bike through the neighborhood pulling a push lawnmower, and I would knock on doors. Could I mow your grass and get paid for it? And like my kids, they've done stuff and they've worked for me. They've worked for friends. They've done landscaping. They've actually worked in at a retail establishment where you clock in, clock out. I mean, they've worked. One worked for the Census Bureau one summer. And they've all worked in certain areas. So I'm not saying any particular place your child has to work. So if you don't want them working at some fast food place or something like that, fine. If you do, fine. But have them do some work so they have an idea of what it means to, okay, I worked this much to make this much money. And there's something about that. Okay, I worked 10 hours and I made $100. Wow. So like every now and then, I say to my son, he would say, and that, my very frugal children, a frugal wife, and I might say, and we say, hey, I say, you can go ahead and get that, and I'll pay half, and he'll look at me like, pay half, like, nah, I don't want it. No, because they have an idea of how much work went behind that. And when you see how much work's gone in, it's like, ooh, I see that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Just like when the other thing I would suggest you do on the finances, and then again, this is it, is put your kids on a financial plan. Sometimes you call that a budget or whatever. Say, okay, kid, hey, whatever your child's name is, sit them down and say, okay, why are you working? What are we going to do with your money? What do you, you're going to try to get a bicycle, or you're a little older, you're trying to get a car or whatever. Let's put that on paper. It doesn't have to be a fancy spreadsheet. Okay, how much is the new car, whatever car you want? Oh, it's going to be $6,000 is my first car. And I'm 14 or I'm 15, whatever. Okay, so you want to buy that when you turn 16. So that means that's 2 years from now, you're going to do raise $3,000 a year for 2 years. And maybe you, as a parent, might want to participate in that fine. Let's say you cut it down in half. So now they got to make $1,500 for the next 2 years. They can't work during the school because of basketball and band, so they can only work in the summer. So now they have to make $1,500 in the summer. How are they going to do that? And it's neat when they see that on paper and they go, oh my goodness, so I'm going to have to make, so much $500 a month for 3 months in the summer. And that means, and then when they do have that $500 that they made, and then somebody says, hey, let's go do this, let's go buy this, you can say, oh yeah, you've got the money to do it. Just keep in mind it's just going to be that much longer before you get your car. And they're like, oh wow. It is so good when they're young, when they grasp that and they understand the concept of money. And unlike when I graduated, I didn't know how to fill out a check. I didn't know. I thought credit cards were free money. I didn't think anything about that. I never worried about payments. As long as I was breathing, I could live long enough. I could make all the payments. At one time, I had an RV payment, a four-wheeler payment, 2 car payments, and a house payment. I think I had and some credit card payments. I had all that at once. I didn't even care because I wasn't making enough money to make all the payments. And at the end of the month, there was a little bit left over. But if not, I still had some room on another credit card, so I wasn't worried. And then it hit me like, okay, then. What you might call common sense at that time, it wasn't common to me because I didn't know anything about finances. I realized that's the dumbest thing I could ever do. Got all that paid off, and it's been forever and ever and ever. I never ever do that again. No debt, no debt, no debt. That is what I would preach to my child as well, which helps in this idea. And if you don't teach them this, who's going to? It's probably going to be the commercials on TV saying, oh, 90 days same as cash, 1 year no same as cash, or hey, 0% interest on this, 1.9% interest on this, or hey, as long as you can make the payment. Just like most people, they'll loan you a lot more money than you could ever want to pay back. Now it's just how that works out. So those are some things. If I wanted to say, I just want to have an afternoon and say, let's just talk about some things I wish every parent would do. This, I could spend the rest of the weekend doing this, but I just wanted to get some just in this few minutes. And I hope this helps. Again, follow me here. I love to get some feedback. Maybe there's some more ideas I need to talk about on another video that you'd say, well, I really want my child to have this or know this. But these are just some things that jumped out at me initially, no particular order of importance. And I'm sure I'm going to think of something more important. And I hope this helps. I'll see you on the next video.